Okay, good morning. This is Dr. Kate Walker, and you are watching my Facebook Live from the Texas Counseling Association where are we? Professional Growth Conference in Fort Worth, Texas. So thanks for watching. I'm going to check, you know what I do? I have to double check and make sure that I'm actually live. So because I don't have my computer set up, I can skip that step. And so what I'm going to do today is I'm going to take you through, we've been talking about visualizing business, and we've been talking about, hey Blaine, good to see you. Thanks for joining us today. So talking about visualizing success, but then also talking about kicking barriers to the curb. So anything that's holding you back from starting your practice. And we've talked about the fears. Sometimes counselors, we think we're introverts, or we don't go out to chambers of commerce and things like that. And I know last week I actually took you through your elevator pitch, right? That elevator pitch so that you can tell someone what it is that you do quickly as possible, a room full of people, right? And then help them teach their friends about you, right? So if you're going to a chamber of commerce, or you're going to a group like Business Networking International, you're not looking for clients per se. What you're doing is you're looking for people who will refer their friends to you, and that is going to build your sales team exponentially. So I'm gonna, if you want to see that video, I apologize. Last time I did this live video, I did it from home, and it was very, very grainy. I wasn't happy with it. I think it was maybe the lighting. So I'm going to scoot up close so you can hear me. This is a big center, and there are lots of people. So I'm going to veer off a little bit today, and I'm going to go through some things from my book, My Next Steps, Create a Counseling Career You'll Love. Because really at this conference, what I'm trying to help people understand is counselors have amazing stories. We all have something that gets us started in the field. That's why we're counselors, right? We're in this field because maybe we had a good counselor, or we had an experience that changed our lives forever. And so that story is what gets us going, but it's the good habits and the discipline that sustain us. So for example, hey, good to see you, Bonna. Nice for you to join us. And this would be a good time to tell you guys, we're having a sweepstakes. I don't know if you noticed this, if you're on the Badass Business page. If you invite a friend who joins Texas Counselors Creating Badass Businesses, and they give you a shout out when I add them, both of you will be entered to win a $200 grant for your private practice. Hey Donna, thanks for joining us. So when you think about your amazing story and you try to balance that with your good habits, one of the things that can help a great deal is just to get your mind saturated in what do successful business people do. So I'm going to give you two perspectives here. One is the old-timey guys. Well, like, these are the guys that wrote the books for the men who were coming home from World War II and they were coming back into industry. Hey Barry, good to see you. Thanks for joining today. So folks like Dale Carnegie, he wrote a book called, love the name, How to Win Friends and Influence People. Because these folks coming back from World War II weren't able to go back to the farm, right? They had to come into the cities. They had to learn how to sell to make a living for their families. So these books, like How to Win Friends and Influence People, really takes you through this idea of when you shake hands, grasp firmly, give eye contact and smile, say the person's name when you're talking to them. And those kinds of things we don't learn when we're doing our counselor education courses. So the old-timey guys, Napoleon Hill, Dale Carnegie. Then we have the new folks, and one of my favorites is Jen Sincero, and that's actually where I stole the name for this group. She wrote a book called You Are a Badass. Hey Solanhal, good to see you. Thanks for joining me today. And so when you find a book like You Are a Badass by Jen Sincero, study it as if you were taking a test on it tomorrow. So if the author of that book says, write down a visualization and paste it to your bathroom mirror, do that. So many times I have people, especially at this conference, I'm going to make you dizzy a little bit. Hey Kimberly, good to see you. I'm going to just hold up and kind of tell you the atmosphere, right? So if you look around, you see all these booths, right? And you see people walking, and I have people that come up to me, and they've come up to me, several years in a row, and maybe they're not experiencing the private practice success, or I'm also, I do a lot of supervisor training, maybe the supervisor success that they would like. And I find sometimes it's because they haven't followed through on the stuff that I teach, or they're not following through on what their business coach is telling them, or they're not following through on what Dale Carnegie is telling them. So when the person, whatever book you choose to read, tells you to do something, you've got to do it. Y'all, I had stuff on my bathroom mirror for years. My kids would laugh at me until they realized it was pretty good stuff, and then they started reading it too. I still take little tiny Post-it notes, and I put things on there like, you are capable, you are brave, you can do this today. And I cover, the RPM thing on your car that nobody really reads, and I don't know what it stands for. Well, I do know what it stands for. I just don't need it. So I cover it up. I cover it up with my Post-it notes, and I still do that. So getting your mind straight is part of this. But the other piece is you only have 24 hours in a day. That's it. We're not going to get any more than 24 hours. If you can work on your business 2 hours a day, 2 hours a day, 2 hours a day, I could teach you to play the guitar. 2 hours a day, I could give you violin lessons. You could give your first concert at Christmas time, right? If you can give me 2 hours a day, and you can even have weekends off, you could have an amazing business, all right? But where does that 2 hours come from? And not everybody is me. I'm a morning person. I love the morning. It's my happy time. When my babies were little, it was how I got work done. I would wake up 2 hours before they had to get on the bus. I would study. I would do whatever it was that I needed to do. I still do that. I love waking up early. I love getting 2 hours of work in before the sun comes up. So, and of course, I have to make sure I don't try to do that on the other side. I don't stay up late and do it too. So I do. Part of these good habits means you have to get a good night's sleep. So our habits, number 1, read other people's stuff. Find a successful business person, see if they wrote an autobiography. Go back to the old-timey guys. Read the old standard advice. Number 2, find 2 hours. Just 2 hours. Find 2 hours and see if you can do that for a week. All right? So we've got good habits. Now, what are you going to do during those 2 hours? Now, this goes back to what we talked about earlier. I had a client last week, and I asked him at the end of the session, okay, so tell me what's been helpful about this session. Tell me what you really, tell me if I've given you what you've asked for today in the session. It's my solution-focused question. I'm sure I said it better than that in the session. I hope I did. And he said, I think I really just need some tools. I want those tools. And I said, I'd love to give you tools, but I have no idea what the picture on the box is, right? When you make Legos and there's always a picture on the box of what you're building, right? So I can give you guys tools all day long, but if you don't have an idea in your head of what it is that you're building, right? And I talk a lot about, if you've been to any of my courses, I talk a lot about what do you want to drive? Where do you want to live? What do you want in your bank account? Do you want a day off? Would you like to take a day off when you get sick? Would you like to retire someday? These really basic questions help you get a bigger picture, right? So getting that bigger picture then makes waking up at 5 in the morning so much easier because you know why you're doing it, right? Now, one of the things I talked about a couple of weeks ago was finding someone who you admire and getting coffee with them, right? And I really didn't cover that too much, but I want you to imagine that this world is filled with people who've done successful things. And I don't just mean in business. Like, if you look in a room and you see like a doorknob, right? So there's a guy that invented the doorknob. There's a guy that invented the screw that attaches the doorknob to the door. There's a guy that invented the door. Keep saying guy, gal. It might have been a woman, right? The door hinge. Everywhere around you that you look, there is something that someone had to invent, and we would miss it if it was gone. So I challenge you to go find someone who's doing something amazing. Now, it doesn't have to be an inventor, right? It can be someone who's living how you admire, how you want to live, right? And if you can't get coffee with them, then observe them, right? I'm sure they've written books. I'm sure that they've done things, I know I talk about this to my group of young women that I mentor every summer. We create a fantasy group, right? So it's a fantasy mastermind group. So I share mine as Ann Richards, Harry Potter, oh my gosh, can't remember. I have to think about that. But anyway, those two are on there for sure because of, their courageousness, what they had to overcome. I've read biographies of people, and it fascinates me to see what sets people apart who accomplish their dream, who start with the picture on the box, right? And then they use their tools to actually build that thing, right? Because there is a way to do that. And as I said before, every counselor has an amazing story. Everybody has a story that brought us to this field, right? But somewhere along the way, we get tired, right? Or somewhere along the way, maybe we run out of money. Or somewhere along the way, something happens and it discourages us, right? That's not okay. The reason that I'm in this field and I've done more training now, I need to make sure that you guys stay in the field. I need to make sure that people who need you in West Texas or the Panhandle or places that are underserved, that they have access to you. I need you to build your practices, and I need you to make money. I need you to make money because you need to be able to take that day off when you're sick. You need to be able to retire. You need to be able to live the way that makes you comfortable, all right? So in order to do that, you have to know the law. You have to have resources. You have to have things that you do every day to keep you involved and keep you in the profession. So that's what this page is about. Counselors creating badass businesses. Invite people to come. Invite people to be a part of it. I'm going to lean down because I dropped my glasses. Hang on. So I'm going to do one more thing out of this book. I talked about making time. Now, the therapeutic use of money is where I'm going to jump off today. And I'm going to leave you with this idea. It's very, very challenging to create a private practice without money. Hey Wayne, glad you joined us. This is a great time to come in because I'm talking about money. So if you are surrounded by people who are doubting you or who aren't encouraging you or even discouraging you, that's not okay. But the therapeutic use of money is that time when you ask yourself, are you charging a livable wage, right? Are you charging what you're worth? And there are ways to make sure your services are affordable, but are you getting the income that you need to survive? Now, the therapeutic use of money, I had a nonprofit called Ann's Place. And at that nonprofit, we would offer services on a sliding fee scale. The rates were anywhere from $10, $20, $30, $40, and we would use the federal poverty standards to set those rates for our clients. Our clients would bring in some kind of documentation. We would document that, we would scan it into their file, and then we would charge them a fee accordingly. And if you need information about that, just Google the current year 2019 federal poverty standards, and you can see sort of how that works. But the idea was everybody had to pay something, right? Everybody had to pay something. We never offered our counseling services for free. And so I'll talk to me, I value what I pay for. Even if I have to pay just a little bit for it, I'm going to value it more. So if you're in a position where you don't feel like you're charging what you're worth, two things are going to happen. One is personal, right? It's going to have to do with you and how you live. But the other part is actually part of, it's a clinical issue, right? Because it could rupture the relationship. I know I had an intern once, and her client started sharing how he or she, I don't recall, had just purchased a new car, or it was some sort of major purchase, and my intern came to me and she was just up in arms, and she's like, wait a second, we've given them this sliding fee scale and now they've gone and spent money. And so in that moment as a supervisor, I recognized that relationship is ruptured, not because the client did anything, but because my intern was now resenting them for, somehow getting a sliding fee scale from us so they could buy a car. And I know that's not why they got the sliding fee scale, but you understand how this now becomes a clinical issue. So if you recognize that you're not making what you want to make, and then you find out your client has just purchased a new home or just gotten a raise at work, right? Then it becomes a clinical issue. So we talk about the therapeutic use of money, right, in two ways. One is, of course, to make sure that your clients are paying something, but also on the other side to recognize that anytime you feel undervalued, it becomes a clinical issue. So that's what we're going to be talking about more in these Facebook Lives. I keep trying to drop my glasses. Barriers to success. You guys are sharing a lot of stuff, and I appreciate that. You're sharing kind of your personal barriers to success. A lot of this, what we do in these Facebook Lives. Hey, Andrea, great to see you. Thank you for watching. A lot of what we cover in here are things that if you were brave. So think of that solution-focused question. What would this look like if you were brave? What would this look like if you walked into that Chamber of Commerce meeting? What would this look like if you told 5 people to set a 10-minute consultation, or to tell their friends about your 10-minute consultation? And if you recall from last week, we were talking about using our scheduling software to offer that 10-minute consultation, free consultation, phone consultation, so people could easily say, hey, I know a person who could answer your questions. Now, I haven't talked too much about a phone script to convert those potential clients to clients, but that's definitely something that we'll cover in these Facebook Lives. I'm going to talk for maybe 5 more minutes. I'm going to cut it a little bit short today because I do want to make sure I've got some folks coming to the booth, and I want to make sure I'm talking to them too. But let me leave you with this. Everybody makes mistakes. None of the stuff I teach you or you read about is going to mistake-proof you, and that's a big part of what I train as well. A lot of times as counselors, we're so scared of making mistakes that it keeps us from being the best therapists we can be, right? Or the best business people that we can be, right? And that fear is something I'm trying to help you guys with, right? That fear of mistakes. So we do try to avoid mistakes, not gonna lie, I try to avoid mistakes. But there's also the idea of what do you do when you make a mistake? What is your absolute very next step, right? So if I'm a surgeon and I accidentally cut an artery, my very next step is, and I don't know what that is because I'm not a surgeon, but I'm sure there are very next steps, right? And you have to do them quickly. So that's what we talk a lot about in this group as well, right? I'm worried because this happened. I'm worried because that happened. Now what? And it's the now what as a community of counselors that we can help each other with, right? So now what? Or my favorite also, what can I do right now to prevent those mistakes? So I need a favor from you guys. Please, please, if you would, put in the comments on this thread just some things that you need, like resources, things that you're not quite sure. We're coming into the new year. 2020 is coming. Maybe you need to get your paperwork in shape. Maybe you want to visit a Chamber of Commerce meeting. Maybe your goal is to, make 6 figures this year or start your nonprofit. Let's put our dreams on paper and see what it is that we need. And this group is growing so fast. I know that there are resources out there. I know that there are people out there that have the resources to help you out, right? That's what we're all about. So I'm going to sign off now. I appreciate everybody for watching, and go tell a friend. Don't forget, December 24th, we will have the drawing for the $200 private practice grant. And so, and you can enter more than once. Like if you ask 3 people to join and they all thank you, you get an entry every time they thank you. I put you on my list. We're up to, I think we have 27 people on the list. So those are pretty good odds. I wish the lottery was that good. So thanks again, guys, and I will see you next Thursday. Bye.